Hello boys and girls, my name is Damien Eds. I wanted to talk about something which is quite close to my heart, and that is the origin of the geezer. Now, a lot of people don't really understand or respect what geezers are about, and that's because they don't really come from that world, they don't really understand what it's all about. So I thought in this video I'd share some thoughts and show you some proper geezers, and to really understand the mindset of how we live and what it's like to be a geezer. So why don't I start by showing you the oldest ever geezer right here. Not that type of geezer, you plonker. I'm talking about this kind of geezer.
You're only supposed to blow the bloody doors off!
The thing to understand about Michael Caine is he came from a rough part of London and he worked his way up. He originally got his first job in a film called Zulu. Now, he wasn't actually ever hired by British directors, but it took an American director who was directing this film, who wasn't so snobby, didn't care about upbringing, and just said, you know what, you're a good geezer and I'll hire you for this film. So that's how he made his first name, not under a British director, but an American director. Here's a little picture to show you. Now, as well as being a top bloke and a top actor, the thing about Michael Caine is he doesn't give a shit about political correctness, which is a common trait amongst geezers. So why don't we watch this clip here and show you what he thinks of political correctness, basically.
And what about the argument going on in Hollywood at the moment that not enough black actors, in fact none, have been nominated for this year's Oscars?
Yeah, but there's loads of black actors. There's loads of black actors, and I think in the you can't vote for an actor because he's black, and you can't just say, oh, I'm going to vote for him. He's not very good, but he's black. I'll vote for him. I mean, you've got to give a good performance.
And another thing about Michael Caine, when it comes to Brexit, the boy knows his stuff. Watch this little clip and what he thinks of Brexit.
I voted for Brexit. I look at it in the final thing, and I tell you what it is with me, is I'd rather be a poor master than a rich servant.
This brings me on to my next geezer. Now, this guy was a big friend of Michael Caine. You may know him, that's right, it's Mr. Bond himself, it's Sean Connery.
I admire your luck, Mr.
Bond. James Bond.
Now, Sean Connery, funnily enough, started his life in his career as a milkman, which isn't, the most respected job, but he was a working class geezer. He had to make do with what he had. So let's listen to this little clip about him talking about what it was like growing up and where he came from.
When I was 9, I started to work, and I used to walk to work in the dark. My mother went to work at the same time, and then I used to go straight from there at 6 in the morning and go straight to school. In 1940, we were moved out of the schools into private houses, which was wonderful. I never went back to school. I just left. And it's only later how much I kind of regretted how much I had dodged a bullet in school. But I got a horse and cart, and I delivered the milk and coal, potatoes and all that kind of stuff. I never had that sense of being genuinely poor. It was only later, when I sort of got away and went to the Navy at 16, that I was really conscious of how different everything was in other places, how much better it could be.
Now, similarly to Michael Caine, Sean Connery did not take no shit. He had some strong opinions and he weren't afraid to say that. Now, that is a common trait amongst geezers. We believe in what we stand for, we're not afraid to say it, and that's why you'll see a lot of geezers vote right wing, because they don't believe in that left wing bollocks about idyllic society where everyone's fucking floating on clouds and everyone just treats each other the same. No, we have tradition, we have values, we have culture, and he ain't afraid to say what he wants.
You did an interview in which you said, it's not the worst thing to slap a woman now and then. As I remember, you said you don't do it with a clenched fist, it's better to do it with an open hand. Yeah, remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I didn't love that.
I haven't changed my opinion.
You haven't?
No, not at all.
You think it's good to slap a woman?
No, I don't think it's good.
You don't think it's bad?
I don't think it's that bad. I think that it depends entirely on the circumstances and if it merits it. Yeah.
What would merit it?
Well, if you have tried everything else, and women are pretty good at this, they can't leave it alone. They don't want to have the last word, and you give them the last word, but they're not happy with the last word. They want to say it again, and get into a really provocative situation. Then I think it's absolutely right.
What would...
A little funny fact about Sean Connery, actually. During his later years, when he started losing his hair, when he was filming Bond, whenever they cut to a break between scenes, he would actually grab his wig, throw it across the room, and just, get on a chair, chill out, and basically just be a geezer. He didn't care about what people thought of him, the way he looked. He wasn't one of these self-conscious little pansies that we see eating avocado on toast in fucking Kensington these days, or wherever the fuck they go. He was a proper geezer, and that's what it's all about at the end of the day. True to your values and stay true to who you are. So that just sums up Sean Connery for me. He was a good looking bloke, great character, always stood for what he believed in, and he was a geezer. Now, this brings me along to my next geezer, and this is probably someone you weren't expecting. That's Mr. Ian Paisley. Now, Ian Paisley was a politician in Northern Ireland fighting for the rights of Northern Ireland to stay British. What a geezer. And the only way to sum Ian Paisley up, in my opinion, is to just watch one of his videos. So watch him here, give a speech, rile up the crowd, and say to the IRA, we don't give a fuck what you're about, mate. We're the fucking British Northern Ireland, mate. We don't give a fuck. So you can fuck right off, mate. Check this clip.
I tell you, there are men in Ulster who'll never surrender. There are men in Ulster who will die rather than pull down the flag. There are men in Ulster who will stand to the last man. Take that back. You never get tired walking backwards. Wonderful country.
As you can see, Ian Paisley did not give a shit. He knew what he stood for. He stood for being British, and he stood for his Christian values. And that's what it's about. Standing for what you believe in, keeping true to yourself, your traditional values. This is what being a geezer is about. Family, commitment, staying loyal to your word. And Ian Paisley, that was him all over. Interestingly enough, despite his fiery rhetoric, even towards the end of his days, he actually made peace eventually with the opposite side. And that was, he came to the conclusion that this route could only take him so far, and that, yes, you need to defend your principles, but sometimes you need to take a step back and make some sort of compromise. But he didn't compromise on his principles. He just said, this way of working things, it was productive, but we needed to make a change, and he found that change in himself. See, real geezers like that, they understand that sometimes, if you're stuck in a flood and your foot's stuck in a drain, sometimes you need to take a chunk out of yourself in order to survive, and that's what Ian Paisley did. God rest his soul.
And what once seemed like the unthinkable came true. He entered government with Sinn Féin. By that stage, the DUP was the biggest party, making Ian Paisley Northern Ireland's First Minister. His deputy was Martin McGuinness, a former IRA leader and a man he had long refused to talk to. Yet they built such a strong working relationship that they became known as the Chuckle Brothers.
No change. If you had told me 40 years ago I would have attained to where I did attain, I would have laughed at you. And certainly I've had a good innings, I've made good friends, and I've reconciled a lot of enemies.
Now that brings me along to my next geezer, which is Mr. Ray Winstone. Now, this is a guy who I've followed for quite a long time. He's probably starred in the best film ever made, which is, of course, Sexy Beast. So let's have a little clip.
Who will let this up? It's ridiculous. Tremendous. Fantastic. Fan-dabidozy-tastic. Oh. Oi, give it some.
This brush is sick.
The good brush, what's the matter with you? Don't blame the brush, it's the man. It's you, it's your technique. Get your back into it. Whoosh.
Yes.
Walking on the beaches, looking at the beaches.
Now the thing about Ray is, he is a proper East London geezer. You know, supports West Ham, doesn't fuck about. He actually first got fame from a film called Scum, in which he played a young prisoner, and one of the scenes he's most famous for in that is putting a snooker ball in a sock and whacking someone around the fucking head with it so fucking hard he fucking falls to pieces. So let's watch a quick clip from Scum.
What's up with you, weirdo? You want striping, do ya? You might get left alone here, but I'll cut you a bleeding ribbons if I get any of your epoxy lip. Back, Ross! I said, get back, shithead.
Yeah, we'll carry on.
And if you listen to Ray Winstone talk, you can see he's a real honest bloke. You know, he's not trying to like big himself up, gin everything up that he says, but he's a friendly, down-to-earth geezer at the end of the day. So let's listen to Ray. You know, tell an old Cockney tale, because we all love a Cockney tale, don't we?
Right, there's two spivs in Victoria Park in Hackney, Charlie and Harry, on a Sunday morning, boiling hot day, walking through the park. Charlie says to Harry, he says, Harry, he says, I'm gasping. He says, I'm really thirsty, could do with a pint. He says, Harry, Charlie, he said, I've got no money. He said, we're both skint, we had no money for weeks. He said, don't worry about that. He said, we'll have a walk round the park, see the ladies pushing their prams around with all the kids. We're going to cricketers down by the canal. He went, all right, lovely, sweet. So have a walk round the canal, see all the girls, bump, 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 into the pub, just opened, and here's the barman behind the bar. He says, morning boys, what's your poison? He said, morning governor. He said, we'll have 2 pints of your coldest draft lager on lime, please. He said, certainly boy. Here's a pint of lager, puts a bit of lime in it. Bang, bang, bang. He said, that'd be £4.75, please, boy. He went, thank you very much, governor. He said, excuse me, governor, before we go any further, he says, in that picture behind you, he says, is that your wife? The governor says, yeah, it's my wife, why? He said, no disrespect, governor. He says, you're a beautiful looking woman. You're a very lucky man. He went, thank you very much. He said, the 2 kids in the picture, are they your kids? He went, yeah, of course they're my kids. What do you mean? He went, no, I'm not being funny. He said, they're fine looking children. Lovely girl and a boy. Beautiful. 50-50. He said, the dog in the picture, he said, is that a red setter or a Labrador? He said, it's a red setter. He said, it's a fine looking beast. He said, thank you very much. He said, the cottage in the background, is that in Devon or in Cornwall? He said, that's in Devon. He said, you're a very lucky man. He said, I know that, thank you very much. That'll be £4.75. He went, excuse me, Gov, before we start. He said, I paid you the $4.75 before we started the conversation. He said, did you? He said, yeah, I did. He went, okay, son. So he walks away. Here's your point, Harry. He said, thank you, Charlie. He said, that was a bit of a libby, wasn't it? He went, no. He said, don't worry about that. So they drink the pint. Governor's looking at them, polishing his glasses. He thinks, I'm sure I've been fucked here somewhere. So they drink their pints and he says, I could do with another pint. He said, leave off. He said, I bought my round. It's about time you bought a round. He went, shut up. You ain't going to stand for that twice. He said, get up and get a drink. So up gets Charlie, walks over to the bar, he says, morning, governor. Governor says, morning, son. What's your poison? He says, I'll have a pint of lager and lime, please, and one for my mate. He said, certainly. Pours it out, wallop, on the bar, bump, bump. 2 bits of lime. He said, that'd be £4.75, please. He went, hold on, Gov. He said, in that picture, he said, before you start, he said, I've heard it all before. He said, in that picture's my wife, my lovely wife, and I love her to pieces. He went, all right. He said, in the picture's my 2 lovely kids, a boy and a girl, 50-50, lovely. He said, the dog's a red setter, not a Labrador, and the cottage is in Devon, not in Cornwall. He said, I don't know what you're talking about, Gov. I'm money waiting for me change.
Now, this brings me along to my final geezer, and some people might be a little bit disappointed that I've included this person, and I can understand why. He is a rapper, and you know, some people say rappers can't be geezers, but I have to push back against that. I think they can. Now, I understand with certain people the way you know, young people in London speak these days, like ting bruv, what are you talking about, bruv? It's a load of bollocks in my opinion. But this didn't used to always be the case. There used to be some proper geezers, and they would rap and sing in their geezer voices, and it was really refreshing to hear. And one of these geezers I really appreciated is Mr. Wiley. Now, Wiley grew up East London, bit of South London, and he's always stayed true to his roots, and he always brings the culture in his music. So let's have a little listen to Wiley and his music.
On a level, still roll deep on a level. I represent the best MCs on a level. I don't know what they told you, but I'm not a mort. You can never be like Wiley on a level. Give me trophies of all-time medals, cause anytime I wanna put pressure on the levels, I save notes and I'm living off shekels. So tell a sound boy you can't play with the levels on a level. It's a new day, nobody ain't telling me shit. Don't mess about, so I take down enemies quick. Can't leave grime cause I love that, or can't you tell? I told myself I don't really give a F like my enemies did.
And if you listen to the way Wiley talks, this guy is raw. So let's have a little listen to him in interview.
How does it feel to win the Inspiration Award?
Amazing, because at this point of my career, like, I'm at a certain point, and I've been thinking lately, I've achieved certain things, and how can I give back to my dad? What can I do for my dad, my mom, my dad? Obviously, I've done stuff for my mum, but I'm saying, what can I do for my dad, my dad, my dad? And then this award came along, and I was like, this is the perfect thing, along with what extra I have to do. And it means a lot to me because I watched him do this before I did this.
And what have you learned along the way?
Along the way, I've learned basically, you are who you are. You might, like people say, I'm going to change. You might not change, but what you can do is adjust. So you are who you are. You learn what you learn, and you don't want to burn your hand in the fire twice. So, it's, I think, like, basic common sense things in life will take you a long way. And that's what I would, like, preach to the next generation, basically,
So what have we learned about geezer culture? Many things, really, and I think some of the things are that geezers can be very welcoming. They can even be your best friend within minutes. That's who they are. But if you step to them in the wrong way, you'll fucking know about it. And that's a common trait amongst geezers. We can be very friendly, very passionate people, but if you cross us in the wrong way, you're going to know about it. Another thing is, we're very traditional. We believe in family values and traditional culture. Community is very important to geezers, and that's an important lesson to know, I think, because in a world where people basically worship everything and value nothing, we need people with solid values. This is why geezers nearly always vote right wing, like UKIP. They used to vote the Conservatives before they became a bunch of avocado eating knobheads. And that's because they believe in culture. They don't want to see the places they live turn into shitholes, because the places where they come from, that's part of their identity, and you'll see that very strongly amongst geezers. A big, strong connection to community, culture and values. So I hope that's been informative, and I hope next time someone says geezer, you don't just think of, the hooligan down the pub or whatever. You think, yeah, he's a geezer, and we should respect him. See you later.